to session number 10 on Support 1. I'm Ernesto Fioqueto. I'm a sociologist from Argentina, and I'm a PhD student at Florida International University in the United States. I feel honored to chair this session, which is composed by two exciting presentations. Before we start, I want to welcome our contributors, Professor Zad Strem, or she will do it better than I am, who has worked with Ilsen Gersoy, Fernando Damasio dos Santos, Harris Eloy, and Alexandra Politi Palm. I also want to thank Ezra Demirkol Colosio, who is our facilitator, for her help and support. Welcome also to all the people that are joining us from diverse regions of the world. Thank you for being here with us and for your interest on the work of our contributors. Please listen carefully to the following housekeeping guidance. The presentation will be recorded and posted online. After the two presentations, which will last for 20 minutes each, there will then be an opportunity for questions and answers. Participants can type your questions and comments using the chat function, and we will select as many as there is time to discuss. Because of the number of participants and the interest of confidentiality, we are unfortunately not able to open the session up to oral questions. Information about the speakers and panel members is on the conference page of the SOGICA website. Session 10 on support gathers two presentations about projects carried out by organizations which are based in two different countries, namely Sweden and Turkey. Please welcome our first contributors, Fernando Damasio dos Santos, Harris Eloy, and Alexandra Politi Palm, who will speak about innovative and intersectional practices for young LGBTIQ migrants, asylum seekers, and refugees in Sweden, the experience of two projects of RFSL Ungdom. My friends, the word is yours.
Thank you very much, Ernesto. So my passion is creativity, and my firm belief is that inclusion and a sense of belonging in society start with the possibility to tell your story, but also to be heard, accepted, and to inspire others. Inclusion is what we are striving for, but it has to start with us listening to each other. My name is Harris, and I'm the project coordinator for Newcomers Youth, and not alone in Europe. Two projects of RFSL Ungdom that we are very proud of. RFSL Ungdom is a Swedish youth federation for LGBTQI rights. My own story starts with an escape. I don't understand the target group. I am the target group. I came to Sweden as LGBTQI refugee and have experienced the asylum system from within. As an asylum seeker, as rejected, as a work visa applicant, as a migrant worker, I have those experiences within me. Today, I'm using my experiences, expertise, and creative skills in meeting, helping, empowering, and supporting the young refugees that participate in the Newcomers Youth LGBTQI centers. The serious situation of LGBTQI person in the asylum system have been highlighted in a comment of the Commissioner for Human Rights and in a report for the European Union Agency for Fundamental Rights. We all know that LGBTQI persons are vulnerable within the asylum system, but by applying an intersectional perspective, it's clear that youth are experiencing a further layer of vulnerability. The needs of the group is to feel safe and empowered within the system. As the Commissioner mentioned in her comment, unlike other groups of refugees, the dangers are not over just because the person has reached the recipient country. Authorities have an important responsibility to ensure security for every person, disregarding sexual orientation or gender identity. However, I see a possibility for youth workers and civil society in general to offer complementary services to this target group in order for them to have a place to go and feel safe, seen and appreciated for who they are, but also informed of their rights in order to be able to demand them from the authorities. The Newcomers Youth is a project which target group are the young LGBTQI people 15 to 30 years of age, who are the asylum seekers, undocumented, or newcomers in Sweden. The overreaching aim of this project is to provide a safe space, legal advice, counseling, and resources for the physical and mental well-being of the mentioned group. The Newcomers Youth Project is funded by Arvsfonden, the Swedish Inheritance Fund. Now you will have more precise details. Welcome, Alexandra.
Thank you, Harris. My name is Alexandra Poletidis Palm. I'm a lawyer and a migration policy expert at RFSL Ungdom and the project Newcomers Youth. Newcomers Youth is a unique project in many ways. Our core values are empowerment and intersectional perspectives in practice. I've been working with both migration issues as well as in the field of development cooperation. And when speaking of migration issues, and especially vulnerable groups, there is still a hegemonic perspective of the target group within the communities of the reception countries, both within the authorities and the civil society. And I'm proud to be a part of a project where we want to create an environment where our members can grow and build their own activism together with each other. And as a project, we want to be facilitators of their agency and voice. So now I'm going to present a little bit of some examples of what we have been doing and our accomplishments. For example, we have started meeting places in order to create a network and build a community. First only in Stockholm, but it grew to 7 cities all around Sweden. We have arranged summer camps with educational workshops, social hangouts and parties. We have great parties always. And we have had around 30 members in each camp. All young LGBTQI asylum seekers, newly arrived refugees, or undocumented. We have had activist workshops where the members can explore their own activism and what they want to raise awareness about. We also had a legal counseling where lawyers are preparing the youth for their asylum interview with focus on the questions regarding their sexuality and or gender identity. We have also had mental support via chat, and this has been in collaboration with another RFSL Ungdom project, Pegasus. During the autumn of 2015, a period by many called the refugee crisis, I started working at the Swedish Migration Agency. From 2015 until 2017, I worked as a case officer, as a decision maker, and also a trainer in human rights and LGBTQI perspectives. My experiences with the Swedish Migration Agency are very valuable in my work today. You can say, I know what the problem is. But I switched sides to an NGO and to work specifically with one of the most vulnerable and unfairly treated groups within the asylum system, which is the LGBTQI children and youth. And one example, what we have done to highlight the situation for the young LGBTQI persons within the asylum system is our newly published report on the situation in detention centers in Sweden. Here it is. And within the report, we presented recommendations to the Swedish Migration Agency on how to improve the safety of the target group. And it was received very well, I think. The challenges of working with this vulnerable target group are many. Even though we have the focus of individual support, community building, and advocacy work, there are situations with no possible solution, problems that can't be fixed. At least not with endless numbers of internal training and education of caseworkers, not only at least. The most important of these being that many of our members are not believed to be LGBTQI persons by the Swedish Migration Agency. No matter how good our project is, if the system itself is failing our members, there is little we can do to help. This is why we wanted to work more with advocacy work and focus on changing the system, which is the main problem. Our members' rights are not cared for within the asylum legislation. The law is, in our opinion, indirectly discriminatory. Our project has taken us to international forums and platforms like this, with the possibility of sharing our experiences and good practices. And now Fernando is going to tell you more about this.
Thank you, Alexandra. Taking from this will to change the system in Sweden, I'm going to introduce the international project Not Alone in Europe that is aiming at a larger scale. It is focused on innovative youth work and intersectional practices for LGBTQI young migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers. As you might have guessed, right? Not Alone in Europe has its activities in the European scenario, more precisely in 6 countries besides Sweden: Spain, Italy, Greece, Estonia, Serbia, and Turkey, with partners, organizations, and activist groups for young LGBTQI asylum seekers, refugees, and migrants in these countries. The purpose of this project is to contribute to the social inclusion of this population and encourage them to be actors of change by the organization of capacity building courses, organizing multiplier events in each partner country, and creating materials in order to face their vulnerable situation. One can say that the motto of this project is what is written in my pullover. I'm not sure if you can see it properly. It says, "Queer solidarity smashes borders." By the way, you can find this pullover in the website, and the money is going to the project Newcomers Youth. But that's precisely what I cherish about this project and RFSL's Ungdom work. Because last year I was coordinating projects for economic inclusion for refugees, asylum seekers, and migrants in Brazil. And there I have faced different challenges to implement actions tailored to LGBTQI persons. And of course, I felt a little bit alone as a gay man that I want to do some work towards that direction. But last year, when I was already studying here in Sweden, I saw the call for participants of this project. And now, ta-da, I'm engaged in the work with this inspirational team and many others around Europe. And this queer solidarity gave me a feeling of belonging, of I'm not alone actually in Europe. And I'm also learning from their hard working achievements while also contributing to overcome current challenges. And as you know, we have a lot of challenges in Europe and in many other countries. But more specifically, I'm assisting with the intellectual outputs of the projects, like the mapping of European organizations. So probably I'll reach you out eventually, or you can reach us to do an inclusive mapping of the organizations. And I also have assisted in the multiplier event here in the city of Malmö, South Sweden. And I can say it was incredible experience, especially in these challenging pandemic times. But now you will have more precise details of the projects with our fantastic coordinator, Haris, please.
Thank you, Fernando. I will start by saying that the project Not Alone in Europe is funded by Erasmus+. Thanks to the Council of Europe and the project You Together, we were able to receive external support and invite participants from Armenia, Lebanon, and Ukraine. You Together is a project of the youth department that seeks to reduce the risk of social exclusion and violence that young refugees, especially minors in transition to adulthood, are exposed to. It supports the social inclusion of young refugees and their access to education, self-development, and autonomy through youth work and non-formal education activities. Back to Not Alone in Europe, it is expected to have as outputs 2 training sessions for the participants from all partner organizations, one preparing for the multiplier events and a second one for the intellectual outputs. multiplier events aiming at empowerment and engagement of young LGBTQI, migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers, and local authorities and entities. Total of 40 multiplier events, 2 in each country. Intellectual outputs such as mapping of organizations in Europe and a method book on practices used during the multiplier events. Network of activities, group, and practitioners working with this team. I will soon help you explore our website, but before, please allow me to share some responses from the very first Train the Trainers program of Not Alone in Europe that gathered 40 participants from 10 different countries and 5 continents in October 2019. During the last 7 days, I had the honor and the joy to be part of the amazing Not Alone in Europe project hosted by RFSL Ungdom in Stockholm. The aim of the course was training trainers on innovative youth work and intersectional practices for young LGBTQI, migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers. It's been developed in an interdisciplinary form through many workshops about reception, inclusion, research, and challenges in the legal field. Motivational interviewing, empowerment, trauma, disability, initiatives for knowledge spread of these themes in civil society and fundraising. I had the chance to comport myself with young lawyers, psychologists, counselors, social workers, members of European institutions, and activists on a topic that is so much relevant in the human rights field. The cultural and emotional heritage that I'm taking with me after this experience is huge. For 1 week, I have been close to many people who have inspired me professionally and as an activist, creating a safe space in which all as participants could learn, by intellectually stimulated, build the foundation for future collaborations, and share our strengths and vulnerability. I would highly suggest the training to be relocated in different countries. Another participant said, yes, it was my first big experience of attending a course tackling this specific target group, especially considering the fact that in my country, speaking about LGBTQI issues or organizing even small workshops is not well accepted and the community is not ready for it. I strongly believe that in our communities, we need people, mainly youth leaders and workers, who will be ready to be responsible for the mission to improve the social situation regarding people's attitude towards the target group and raise awareness about it in the society. I feel that I'm gradually becoming more prepared for that, feeling more inspired having attended the course. One last, the course was one of the most exciting experiences I've ever done as an activist. It also gave me a lot of professional knowledge that I could not have acquired simply and only by studying. Being a refugee is not easy in itself. Being an LGBTQI+ refugee asylum seeker is challenging to a great extent. It's also acknowledged that social cohesion does not happen overnight. It requires a long-term focused approach. The way the course was designed addressed many aspects of the known challenges. It covered fundamental topics, from legal refugee framework to psychosocial obstacles in their daily lives. It did not only address the latter, but proposed tangible solutions and the way forward. It brought +40 individuals from across Europe who would have then take the learning back home and act as an agent of change. Back to the website, I'm gonna share my screen with you and I'm gonna guide you through it. So just give me a second. That is great. So the Newcomers Youth website consists of 4 main tabs. Youth Guide, where members can share their valuable services besides regular, So Youth Guide, where members can find all the relevant information to the asylum process in Sweden, helpful links about their rights, vocabulary, and support, as you can see over here. Activities tab, where we share the available services besides regular hangouts, mental support, activist camps, legal advice. As Alexandra mentioned before, we have so-called activist workshops, whose current page is not visible at the moment. From August 2020, we will start the theater program session. It's expected to tour across Sweden from January 2021. In the activities pages, you will find different method material. For example, the LGBTQI+ asylum guide for newcomers youth meeting places, available for free. The English version will be published by the end of July. You're more than welcome to contact us if you wish a copy. So as I said, about the meeting place, here is when you can find that method book. Currently it's available in Swedish, but we are working on the English version. You will find the Not Alone Europe and Attention Detention under the tab Projects, which is right over here. You can read more about us under the Info tab. There will also find our current information. So all our contacts are in there. Upcoming on our website is the Campaign tab. All campaigns organized by the Newcomers Youth share one uniform goal: raising awareness about difficulties, potentials, and resilience that the LGBTQI asylum seekers in Sweden experience and show in their daily existence. As we speak, our project manager, Tina Lavi, is editing the digital campaign, If I Had the Power, consisted of 8 short documentary films, which our members share their personal stories. Upcoming as well in the web shop, Library tab, audience will be able to purchase our clothing line, Newcomers Youth Creates, tickets for the Newcomers Youth Show, our early magazine, and more. All proceeds go back to the project in order to create more meeting places across Sweden, provide food and other necessities to the members. The free library will gather different types of materials, mostly written by us, to help other organizations, volunteers, youth workers in supporting and empowering the target group. We have several highlights that are several places that we take part of. So the Newcomers Youth took part in becoming a part of Europe, which is tasked with encouraging international cooperation, knowledge sharing, and documentation recommendations to work towards social inclusion of young people with migrant backgrounds. It's a project within the scope of the EU Youth Strategy 2010-2018. 2018 was also a year when Newcomers Youth won the Best Inclusion Award at the UNP Development Program. Princess Sofia presented the award to the Newcomers Youth team. Let me just stop the sharing of this. So my last words, our experience is not revolutionary. Our methodology and tools are not revolutionary. It's merely to put a foundational human ability into practice, to listen, make projects, and invite speakers. But listen, don't talk about the target group. Listen to the target group, invite the target group. And if you think they will not show up, look again. And to all representatives or national agencies, international or regional organization, we need you to be creative and brave. Take a holistic approach and make reforms to the asylum system. Fund researchers, look for the possible solutions. Otherwise, we cannot solve the core issue here. And it's ultimately about the access to justice. And we still believe that is fixable. Thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Haris, Alexandra, and Fernando, for this fantastic presentation, and congratulations for the work that you are doing. It's really amazing. Thank you very much. Please remember that after the following presentation, there will be an opportunity for Q&A. So participants, you can type your questions using the Q&A function, and well, then our contributors will be happy to answer your questions. Now we are going to listen to Zade Serm, who will speak about multiple precarities, reflections from Soji refugees' applications to a civil society protection project in Turkey. Jade, the word is yours.
Thank you very much. Okay, my presentation decided to disappear from the list, sorry. Oh yeah, yeah. So before I start, I want to tell a few things about the terminology I choose to use here to not fall into a discussion about these. I'm using refugee to include asylum seekers and those under temporary protection and all others, because that is the terminology preferred in Turkish. And LGBTI+ includes all sexual orientation and gender identification, Again, both within this project and general activism, this is the term preferred in Turkey. I have discussed with İksan about how to refer, and we have decided with Z and they interchangeably for gender pronoun. And I'm going to be using she when I refer to trans or trans women, as it was preferred in the English reporting by the project partners. First, I want to introduce İksan Gürsoy, my co-presenter. İksan is listening us on the phone at the moment because due to a family emergency, Z had to be in the village where there is no internet. İksan was a caseworker in the project, which is the focus of this presentation, Combating Sexual and Gender-Based Violence project. İksan is a trans feminist queer activist and was working in the project for over 2 years till the LGBTI+ part of the project was closed back in December 2019. The plan of the presentation is I'm going to first talk about the project, the activities they do, the context of the project, and give 2 cases in detail, and discuss about the legal procedures, protection application procedures, which was actually the focus of yesterday's talk by Ayşe. I think that's why I have decided to cut most of the discussion from there. If you're interested in the legal framework, you can listen to that from the recordings if you didn't yesterday. So Combating Sexual and Gender-Based Violence Towards Refugees project was a civil society project run by Women's Solidarity Foundation and International Medical Corps, IMC, in 2016. Later in 2017, it focused solely on sex workers. And when IMC couldn't resist the repression from the Turkish government, they left Turkey. So they closed all their projects in Turkey. So after that point in 2018, UNHCR sponsored the project, and the project became inclusive of LGBTI+ sex workers. And its name changed a bit. Community-Based Protection in Ending CGBV Against Refugees in Turkey was the title of the project in 2019. So actually this is 4 projects together, but we are focusing mainly on the last 2 years of this project at this presentation. The activities of the project included outreach activities, awareness raising sessions, advocacy, individual counseling, and a hotline. And I would like to take your attention to this pictures of the hotline cards I have shared. And I'm going to discuss at the end why this wrongly written English Against Violence Consultancy Solidarity Hotline and similar mistakes were there in the Arabic version as well. It's very important because it's about agency of the social workers and case workers within the project and the interpreters and applicants. So context of the project focused on the protection requests of refugee sex workers and giving them individual psychosocial support, and giving help in applying to asylum through UNHCR till 2018, as in 2018 the local legal framework changed and they couldn't apply to UNHCR from Turkey anymore. The applications protection request included first safe shelter and protection from violence, receiving of IDs, which most of the refugees in the project, well, majority of the applicants didn't have documentation. They requested legal assistance, referral to UNHCR, and also medical support, and some other needs were met through the project partners and in cooperation with other NGOs. In the last 2 years, the project had a recording system put in place, to record all applications and to follow up on these cases. 61 LGBTI plus persons were part of the, applied to the project for protection. I have left the terminology trans men, 1 trans man, 5 trans women, 25 trans, 1 non-conforming, 24 gay, and 5 lesbian. This is the self-identification of the applicants in terms of SOGI. And their countries of origin were mainly from Syria, but also from Egypt, Iran, Iraq, Jordan, Morocco, and Tunisia. The sex worker refugees have multiple precarities. They are in unregistered employment. Sometimes they are forced into this through human trafficking by their families, or they are working somewhere and end up doing sex work. They have lack of social security. There is no safety. There is lack of access to healthcare, no hormones if they are in the transition period. The transgender hormones are not available for them. There is no protection from sexually transmitted illnesses, and they face violence. The majority of the applicants to the project, not only LGBTI, but also the women and girls, have increased precarity due to social and cultural structures in Turkey. Many of them especially who are surviving on sex work, they face more violence. Up to now, the caseworker of the project and co-writer of this paper, İksen, didn't have the chance to analyze and evaluate the processes observed within the 4 years of these projects. This intervention in this regard is a way to give way for an analysis of valuable information collected as part of this project. From a SOGI and migration perspective, and voice not only the applicants, but also the social workers and case workers who are facing extreme repression within the Turkish context. Working with refugees and LGBTI communities, the vulnerability of the social workers is also doubled. So, incidence of gender-based violence among the refugee population in Turkey is existing in many forms, but remain highly undocumented, underreported due to cultural barriers, fear of stigmatization and rejection by family and the community, but also due to the violence coming from the police or bureaucracy, through the bureaucracy as well. So I'm going to, I asked İksen, which were the 2 cases that you always remember back when you think of the people you have met throughout the project. And the first case she referred to me was a trans woman from Iraq. This trans woman was buried under the ground with hands and arms tied by her father, and her mother found and sent her to Turkey. She needed to prove this violence for third country application. An NGO giving healthcare provided a special bone analysis to support this previous, almost a year before, violent experience. But the procedures were taking too long, and an old neighbor from Iraq saw her in the street in Istanbul. So at this time she felt her life was under risk, and everybody was telling to survive you have to be a sex worker. So she was all the time being offered to do sex work. That was her only chance, and this is the quote from the report. She doesn't want to be a sex worker. She thinks that she has a risk of life. And then some other details, and the final words are, she went back to Iraq, the file is closed. So when she disappeared from the project, they have asked for information if she has been transferred to a third country, or where is she? If she's still in the country, they would request a search order, but she was reported to be going back to Iraq. But the file was closed like this. And it's very hard when you don't know what will happen afterwards to this person going back to the place of origin where she already had violent experience. But then she called from the Netherlands and said that she illegally traveled to the third country and needed her documentation application from this case. So this was a survival case in this regard. With a risk of life in Turkey, she found her own ways to not to wait for this long-taking process. The second case was a 16-year-old trans woman. During the protection application process, when İksen was following her case, she was kidnapped 4 times. And she faced police violence. That's why I didn't want to go to the police application, protection application process. The people, she was living with 15 other people who abused her during her time. But through development of trust, through the caseworkers' position and developing of this trust relation, she agreed to complete the protection application together with an interpreter and the caseworker, and they did the medical and police applications through this project, and at age 18 was settled to the UK. It is very interesting because despite the fact that we had been talking about the legal framework not letting the NGOs to apply to UNHCR for third country settlement, asylum. İksen's 2 case studies are about 2 cases that Z chose, is both successful applications in the end. Somehow they have managed to go to a safe place. But till the end of 2018, the asylum applications in Turkey to UNHCR could be made through implementation partners, which were 2 NGOs, but KADAV also could cooperate with them and make the application. Association for Solidarity with Asylum Seekers and Migrants and the Human Resource Development Foundation were the 2 UNHCR partners in Turkey, NGO partners. But in 2018, Turkish government, after establishing the Directorate General of Migration Management in 2016, requested that first applications must be made in person to the Directorate General of Migration Management, which meant that NGOs were not there to help with the process, and their situation, their precarity and special treatment, condition application would be treated by one government officer, and Turkish government is actually homophobic, transphobic in practice, and for these applicants it became even harder to show their precarities to receive special procedural guarantees for being LGBTI and having a violence application. So the 2019 project focused only on this violence application for the LGBTI sex workers. But at the end of 2019, they decided to exclude the LGBTI sex workers and direct them to other NGOs if they call the hotline, because the repression on NGOs in Turkey has increased. In Turkey today, it's not possible to organize any LGBTI plus events, let alone activism and human rights advocacy. So it's just getting harder to work on these issues. So why this error in English in the cards prepared was important for me. In Turkey, the LGBTI activism, civil society, academia, every place you can voice an intervention, an issue under repression. If you want to talk about democracy, it is getting harder and harder each day. So LGBTI topic is repressed. You cannot talk, publish, organize events. You cannot do research about these topics. You cannot even, they don't want you to teach these courses, gender courses. I work at a social work department and I teach gender course. And if every time you receive regulations on how to teach the course, if you decide to listen, you will not be talking about gender. And though it is amazing that we are reaching to a lot of people through this online conference, I feel like it is putting me at the center of this talk where I do not want to be. I haven't been part of this project, but I offered my help to analyze and to voice these experiences from this project because I saw that it was very important for ICSAN to voice them. And voices of LGBTI survivors of sexual and gender-based violence in Turkey should be heard both within the country and beyond. ICSAN told me that once they organized a party, but for refugee LGBTI, but at the end of the party, the refugees told that they felt discriminated and excluded by the LGBTI community in Turkey. Turkey's LGBTI plus community activism is white privileged and Western centric, as Catherine in her amazing opening keynote speech stated yesterday. The language of SOGI refugee claims is so, and in this regard, it can only be voiced by those with Western education like myself. I acknowledge my own privileged position in this regard, being able to follow the amazing interventions at SOGICA conference, and will be reading the very exciting forthcoming publications by the SOGICA team. But unless the interventions break down the Fortress Europe and make changes for a more democratic and open-minded migration regulation in Turkey, a majority of the LGBTI plus refugees will not live to see the day of self-determination and existence. And though we have not talked about this, there have been cases reported during the following of their applications who have been killed by violent hate crimes while doing sex work. So that's all I want to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So it's an amazing presentation and it's a beautiful work that you are doing. Congratulations.